Of all the French privateers in 16th century America, none were more feared than François Leclerc and Jacques Desseaux. One was Catholic and one was Huguenot, which is a reminder that religious rivalry and religious hatred weren't the only motivating factors in early privateering. Religion might be important to particular captains, particular instances, and sometimes it made a difference in how they carried out their attacks, but the Spanish expected violence either way. They were at war with France, and the French privateers wanted treasure. Well, Leclerc was the Catholic captain and Soult was the Huguenot, also known as jambe de bois, meaning leg of wood. I know I'm butchering the French. Leclerc was the first, but not the last, peg-legged pirate in America during the Age of Sail. He lost his leg fighting the English in 1549, but after he recovered, he turned his attention to Spain. Leclerc and Soult left France in 1553 with 3 royal ships, 2 private ships, and a handful of smaller vessels. They cruised the Spanish coast and plundered one town in the Canary Islands before they crossed the Atlantic Ocean to the Caribbean. Here they attacked Spanish communities at Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and Mona. But Cuba probably suffered most at their hands. In 1554, Leclerc returned to the Caribbean with a different fleet and targeted the same places as before. Then he descended here on Santiago, which had been the capital of Cuba for decades at this point. He and his men occupied the town for 30 days, looting and burning when they didn't get what they wanted. The destruction of Santiago in 1554 was one of several reasons the capital eventually moved to Havana. But the pirates didn't treat the new capital with any more respect than the old one. Just 1 year after the attack on Santiago, Captain Soult came to Havana with 3 ships and 200 men. Now that he had an independent command, in other words, now that he wasn't working under Leclerc, he could express his anti-Catholicism however he wanted. Havana was defended then by 1 small fort and a handful of soldiers. Civilians had weapons and were supposed to use them should the need arise, but they were still too few in number. So when Soult landed his troops nearby and came at the town with all his banners and flags, his drums and guns, the governor and colonists fled, leaving the soldiers to surrender the fort after a short siege. Soult targeted Havana because someone told him that the treasure from a recent shipwreck was stored here. But that information turned out to be wrong, and Soult was very disappointed. He demanded 30,000 pesos from the colonists. But when they said they only had 4,000, he laughed at them. He told them that he did not know there were crazies outside France. Well, Soult went from disappointed to angry when Governor Perez de Angula raised a force of colonists, Native Americans, and slaves for counterattack. Not a military man by training, Angula failed, but he did kill several French, including a relative of Soult. In response, Soult slaughtered most of his captives. He extorted what loot he could from the locals. He killed the slaves as mere property. He destroyed all the boats in the harbor, and he devastated the surrounding countryside. He desecrated the local Catholic church and distributed the priest's robes to his men, who put them on and pranced about to mock their religious enemies. And before leaving, the invaders burned Havana to the ground. The François Leclerc and Jacques Desseaux raids of the 1550s marked an important turning point for Havana and the Spanish Caribbean. The raids demonstrated the weakness of Spanish defenses and the need for fortifications, soldiers, and colonists. The governor of Cuba moved permanently from Santiago to Havana, and from that time forward, all governors had to be military men. Havana got more money, more forts, and a garrison numbering in the hundreds. As for the larger Caribbean, the raids of the 1550s were a new phenomenon. Yes, French privateers had been harassing Spaniards there for 20 or 30 years, But where they came with one or two ships before, now they had small fleets. And now they had material support from the French crown, helping them wreak even greater havoc, cause even greater destruction. Historian Kenneth Andrews writes, "The Caribbean became, for the first time, a significant theater of international warfare." Another historian, this is Chris Lane, says that Leclerc and Soult also set a new standard of cruelty. Quote, "From the 1550s onwards," so this is Lane, "Spanish subjects could expect to be tortured, murdered, and extorted at random by foreign raiders from the sea."